And what that means is I have a really great job. I get to work with everyone across campus, with our alumni, with our students, with our trustees and our faculty for sure, and of course with our leadership to help gather ideas, to think of new ideas, and to help us plan and build the way forward with the new Center for Global Engagement. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. My compass has to do with cultural humility, with collaboration, with creativity, and these are all the ideas that are grounding and have been what we have learned from Oldenborg and are helping us plan the way forward. Look around this room. There are alumni carrying 60 years of memories, of leadership. There are faculty who have built their careers and their friendships in and around one very interesting building. There are language residents who have crossed an ocean to live and teach among us. There are staff who have kept the lights on and kept the language tables set and have cultivated our learning. And there are students, some of whom are still in the middle of their Oldenborg journey and even walking this walk as their chapter is ending. I'm honored to be among you in this community and to open this gathering and multiple celebrations that we have today. Dear Oldenborg, 60 years ago, you were a bold idea, fueled by the knowledge. The language and culture weren't just subjects to be studied, that international relations wasn't just about a career, but that transformative learning meant being rooted and committed, that navigating across the things that separate us was key to understanding ideas and problems in and outside of the classroom. You, Oldenborg, you represented a way of being, a way of moving through the world with curiosity, with humility, and with genuine connection. Pomona made a bold choice with the idea of immersive residential language learning. We built a space for us to engage with each other in new ways every day. That choice made history. Oldenborg and the residential immersion learning space has been emulated across the country. And here, over 6 decades, more than 25,000 students and community members sat at your tables, lived in your halls, broke bread in a language not their own, and walked away transformed. 29 languages, 7 immersion halls, countless conversations that began with a stumble over grammar, or a conversation in the corridor, or an activity and lesson in the lounge. And it ended in friendship, in discovery, in scholarship, even in love. We know of stories. Oldenborg, you gave students, so many students, even us who were not of student age, the first real experience of what it means to be a stranger in a familiar place. And through that, you gave those students something rare, the ability to practice connecting across difference. That is not a small thing. And in today's world, that is everything. Dear Oldenborg, you were never just a building. You were a home, a community of people who agreed voluntarily, joyfully even, to step outside their comfort zones and to invite others in. I have heard many stories in my time here. The students who came to Pomona not knowing a word of Japanese and left having spent a year in Tokyo. The faculty member who met a lifelong collaborator at the language tables. The language resident who came from China, from Russia, from Germany, and discovered they belonged in a place that was so much more than a job. What you made, Oldenborg, wasn't just a place to learn about languages and culture. It was the essence of belonging, the kind that forms when people are willing to be imperfect, to explore, and to transcend boundaries together. Now, as many of you know, Oldenborg as a building is at the end of its useful life. And I know that makes a lot of us very sad. But what Oldenborg represents, the way of learning, The immersive experiences and the relationships in which it is rooted are catalyzing our vision for the future. At Pomona, we're in the midst of building the new Interdisciplinary Center for Global Engagement. It will stand on Oldenborg's current footprint, but it will carry all of the DNA of Oldenborg and the International and Domestics Programs Office into the next 3 or 4 decades for Pomona. The CGE is Oldenborg 2.0, and it is so much more. All of Oldenborg programs and the Study Away programs will continue. And the CGE is our once-in-a-generation expansion of global and local collaboration and experiential learning. It will benefit every member of the Pomona community. It will combine living and learning with language and theme-based residence halls, with classrooms, with places to get together and work, with a forum for gathering, for learning, for discovery, and programming opportunities that will expand the way students study abroad, study off campus, and study domestically. Projects where faculty and students will get to work together on teams, and a robust visitors program where we can bring leaders and scholars and other thinkers, creative people from around the world to Pomona to engage with our community. Everyone of the Pomona community will have an opportunity to engage with the center, and they can practice what it means to be learning together and transcend boundaries. And I'm talking about all kinds of boundaries: disciplinary boundaries, cultural boundaries, geographic boundaries, certainly language boundaries. Thanks to Oldenborg and the expertise of many partners across campus, the CGE will be an international and exciting and intentional and exciting manifestation of everything that this community has proven that it can do so well. The CGE needs Oldenborg and what it taught us. The world needs Oldenborg and what it taught us. Dear Oldenborg, that's us. That's all of us in this room. Every person that has been a member of this community and still wants it to be what is possible looking forward. None of this would be possible today without the great contributions of our storytellers. Thank you for being here. You are all in for a treat today. And it is with enormous gratitude that I also want to thank Crystal Gammon and Nan Crawford, who helped to put this event together. Their creative energy, their thoughtfulness, and their leadership, along with a whole team of people working behind this event, is what made today possible. So let's tell our stories once upon a time. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. Good morning. Labadiena. Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry. Merhaba. Ni hao. And many more. My name is Anne, or Anna Ivanovna, or Anya, or Onute, or Anyachka. And I'm here to welcome you and our lovely storytellers here today. I think this is going to be a really exciting event. And I thank you for coming. And I'm assuming that each one of you has something to do with Oldenborg. So, as a little warm-up, I'm going to ask you to turn to someone near you whom you do not know and take a minute to say what Oldenborg means to you. Go. I love this energy. Okay. We have lunch at 1:30. Cut. Thank you. Thank you. You just can't stop. I love it. Okay, I'm going to do a little just touch base here in the audience. Over here, what did we learn? One word: Favorite thing about Oldenborg? True love. I love it. True love. Okay, I'm going to do an audience poll. Did anyone else find true love at Oldenborg? Oh, look, there's more. Okay, that was, let's say, interpersonal. What about, did anyone have some kind of formative career building life direction moment at Oldenborg? Oh, I see one right here, but maybe I'll get that one too.
Decided we want to go to grad school in linguistics.
Grad school in linguistics. Okay, I've got to catch that other one, and then we'll move to. Oh, there's three. Okay, no, okay, one over here.
My first week in Oldenborg, I met a Hungarian student, first year, and she said, "You should go to Hungary." I said, "Okay." 4 years later, I was in Hungary, and now I speak Hungarian.
Life-changing moments, careers, languages, moves. Anybody else have life-changing moments at Oldenborg? No one else? Life-changing moments at Oldenborg. Just, it's a poll. I'm not going to ask. We can't do it. A few people. Okay, there we go. You get to talk later, Terrell. I think that's great. I'll use those two. I guess three is the charm. So maybe one more thing. We had interpersonal. We had career and life-changing moments. Does anyone have a particular memory of the Borg, the building? Building memories? What is it? Resistance is futile?
There was a bathroom, a bathing room on the second floor, and I went there as frequently as I could when I needed to relax. I brought a book, something to drink, and bath salts.
And we will not ask about any more bathroom stories. Because I hate to say it, but plumbing may come up again today. On that note, friends, I am very excited to introduce our first speaker. Our speakers come from all walks of life. They're students, former students, staff members, community members, all kinds of people. But our first one is actually a student now. Liam, come on up.
Hello there. My name is Liam Baird Jr., and I'm, well, a junior at Pomona. A year ago, on April 28th, 2025, a Monday, I found myself in the Chinese hall in my dorm, staring at a big gray sack on my bed. Inside of that sack was none other than a Cecil the Sage Hen costume. Now, I had a little prank to pull. So I decided to put on the costume, tie on my chicken feet, try to zip myself up in the back, and then put on my helm, try to not hit my head on the door on the way out. I was waddling on over to Oldenborg Dining Hall. First person I see is Stephanie, who was the administrative coordinator at the time, managing all those swipes. Hand on her heart, just shocked, and I felt really bad about that. But I had to get my swipe, and what you'll know about these Cecil Station costumes is that unintentionally there's these little holes where the hand should be. Just big enough where you can hold your ID card, you can get your swipe, and I managed to keep my perfect attendance for that semester. But anyway, I had a mission. I'm waddling on over, I get over to the Spanish tables. Now, the room has gotten really quiet. I'm standing right behind one of my friends, Eduardo, who's my roommate at the time and also my best friend here. And my mission is to embarrass him. So I decided to ruffle his hair, say chirp chirp, and go on my way. Mission accomplished. But my exit strategy was poor, because you see, I had to pass by Chinese tables on the way out. Now I'm in the Chinese hall, and so the Chinese language resident says to me, "Oh, Cecil, ni hui lai jarma." I do a full 180. I give away exactly who's under the mask. I try to cover it up. I try to wave and say, "Oh, chirp chirp." But my head is hanging low because now I have to go back to my dorm, and I know when I come back to the dining hall, she's going to make fun of me for it. I come back to the dining hall, I get food, I plop myself down at that Chinese table, and Cece, who's the Chinese language resident, she's already telling stories about how Cecil just spontaneously came into the dining hall and left. And the ironic thing is that I haven't seen Cecil go into the dining hall either, so I'm hearing it for the first time. After we joke about that for a bit, I'm heading on my way out. And Cece says to me, "Oh, you're Cecil's like manager, right? You can make sure he comes to Chinese conversation class today." I was like, "Yeah, I can probably do that." So Cecil may or may not have made a second appearance in Oldenborg that day at Chinese conversation classes for a photo shoot. The head might have gotten passed around to every single student, that sort of thing. But the reason I tell this story is for two purposes. Firstly, is that I think it really just represents how at Oldenborg you adopt all these different modes of thought, these different languages, these different modes of expression, and how somebody can get to know you so deeply under them that even under a mask they know exactly who you are. And secondly is why I had the costume in the first place. I had that costume to market an event for students, faculty, and staff to get together outside of Oldenborg, to create this new space for people to get together. But at Oldenborg, that happens naturally, organically. It's a tradition that's lasted 60 years. And I just really hope that after today, after hearing all these stories, that we're able to keep this tradition alive during the transition period and into the new building. So thank you very much. Chirp, chirp.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adana Maya. I'm from El Salvador. My background, what I used to work is in the restaurants industry. I ended up applying for a job at Pomona College 2009. I got hired. After 2 months later, someone was very special. And the reason that I'm on here right now is because her. She invited me to go Oldenburg to participate in those many language tables. And I have a special feeling for her because she's the reason that I'm in here, and that's Rita Bosha. Great to see you again, Rita. Remember, you still live right here in my heart. Don't pay no rent. Anyway, I started visiting Oldenburg every day, and all I have to do, like she told me, is get into with the students, make them talk, have a conversation, and then you will do the rest. Finally, second week, when I was at Oldenburg table doing what I had to do, there were two students that I met them. And one of them, it was this kid from China. And he came up to me, and he was speaking little English at the beginning, little Spanish at the beginning. And he said, ¿Cómo estás? And I say, oh, bien. And then I say, ¿Hablas español? You speak Spanish? I say, a little bit, but I want to learn more. And I said, well, you are in the right place. And that's here. I took the chance through the 4 years that I met this guy. The third year, I invited to my home country, which is El Salvador. And I said, you want to mastermize your language, Spanish? Let's go travel with me and my family. So I took the chance to do that with him and the other ones. And he's here right now. And he came all the way to see me from China with his mom, because he's so blessed. Bob, can you stand up for me, please? So much love and caring for this family. Through the years, I've been meeting so many students that I've been working as a mentor for them. And not just for the Spanish table, because I speak Greek, Italian, and Portuguese. But it took me to the level that not just to see them as a student, but part of my family. I call them my kids. I call them sons, my hijo. And here's another one. Can you stand up? I mean, that's the beauty and the magic of Oldenburg. That's how Oldenburg has been created for so many years, for so many families, for so many kids, that once they departed from here, they graduate from here, they go ready to confront the world over there and become professionals. Like Bob, 7 languages, my God, in the world. I never thought that he was going to learn so many languages. But like I say, thank you for Pomona College that has given me the chance to develop myself in another, I can say, professional way, to be with students I mean, I learned so much from them, and I still do it. But here's the sad part of that. This month will be my last month working for the college. I retire. Yeah. But right here, deep in my heart, I'm always going to have Pomona College and Oldenborg, because that was my second family right there every single day. Thanks for everything. I mean, everything has been wonderful. And because the students, and because Rita, 2018, and her first year, the president, Gina Starr, and the college awarded me with a distinguished award for the most distinguished and best, I can say, employee of the year. Yeah, I came up in two of those Pomona College magazine too, doing an article talking about what I'm doing for the students. But it's a great achievement that I took in right deep in my heart. I never forget every student students from China, Korea, I mean, you name it, from here. And believe me, it's kind of sad that my time is done with Pomona College. But let's keep going with Oldenborg. I know it's going to be a new building, but I'm coming back in 2 more years to see that new building. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. That's my next speaker, Jacqueline.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Cordes. I'm a Pomona alum, class of 2025, Oldenborg resident of the Japanese Hall for 3 years, and here is one of my favorite memories. I'm at the Chinese table. I come to Oldenborg every day, alternating between the Japanese and Chinese tables. Today, there are maybe 6 other people with me. One of them is Sophia, the language resident at the time. And she is the happiest, most bubbly person I have ever met. She's like overflowing with joy. So we're all speaking Chinese. And then a student next to me asks me, 你喜欢麻还是辣? Do you like ma or la? And la means spicy. And I go, 麻是什么? What's ma? And she says, it's numb taste. And I go, what's that? And then Sophia is like, hold on. And then she runs up to her room and comes back a few moments later with a big bottle of oil labeled Ma Yo, numb oil. And then she starts handing out spoons for all of us to try it. And I start getting nervous. I'm like, is it spicy? Like, I don't like spicy food. And everyone's telling me, no, it's not spicy, it's numb. And so I realize this might be my only chance to try something like this. So I very carefully take the tiniest possible sip from my spoon of oil. And they were right. It's not spicy, and it really does make your tongue numb. Over the years, Oldenborg has given me new experiences that I never would have gotten otherwise, and given immersion that is really hard to replicate in a classroom. For example, one time at the tables, a debate broke out about when you hear an owl at night, whether you're supposed to cover your eyebrows to save your life or to save your eyebrows from turning white. I haven't yet been to China or Japan. They're both on my bucket list. But when I do go, I feel like my experiences in Oldenborg have made me more open-minded and more willing to try new things. My friends always laugh at me because when I talk about going to Japan, one of the first places I mention that I want to go is Aoshima, Cat Island. It's a funny goal, but it reminds me of why I want to go in the first place, to just have new experiences and see where they lead. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Terrell Jones, class of 1980. And Don mentioned student Bob. there who actually is a former student of mine, took a class with me, and we've stayed in close touch since then. And I thought you came to see me, you know. But hey, there's enough love to spread around here. And plus, Adon's going to be leaving after this month, so I'll still be here. We look forward to you coming back. 50 years ago, 1976, I walked onto Pomona campus and into Oldenborg as a first-year student. The director of Oldenborg at that time, many people might remember as Dr. Baumann, Cecilia Baumann, who's now Cecilia Koffley, who was right here in the front row. Yeah. So I guess I go back with you longer than anybody else in this room, arguably, right? When I came, yeah. Well, so please say hello afterward too. When I came back from China to Claremont, Rita was the director of Oldenborg. So welcome back, Rita. Also, yeah, thank you for coming back. So I lived in the Chinese, Japanese, and French sections in Oldenborg for 5 semesters. And went to the language tables, which was a formative experience and a great training exercise for me in my later career to be a journalist, including overseas in China, Japan, and France. I just wanted to tell a couple of those recollections to show how the experience of Oldenborg impacted my career. In 2011, I was actually based in China, but I went to Japan to help cover the massive earthquake and tsunami that happened in March, as you might remember. And I was put in touch with a worker who was inside the number 3 reactor of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, the one that was heavily damaged by the tsunami and the earthquake. And he described to me on the phone, his name is Hiroyuki Nishi, and Nishi-san described to me how the violent shaking of the earthquake, it was a 9.0, the biggest recorded earthquake in Japan's history. It went on for 2 minutes. Everything was shaking, and this 200-ton hook that was up at the top used to move things around came crashing down and landed 6 feet away from him. Almost took him out. The lights went out. It was all dark. A small red emergency light went out, and all the doors locked automatically because of fears of radiation leakage. All these people inside, maybe more than 100, were started saying, we got to get out of here. This earthquake, we're right on the shore. There's going to be a tsunami coming. And the people at TEPCO, the company that ran the nuclear power plant, said, no, with this protocol, we have to check each of you for radiation before we're allowed to leave. And the crowd was going more and more unruly and crazy. And finally, they just threw open the doors and said, okay, leave. So he rushed out with a friend, and we were driving frantically, trying to reach his wife. He was driving. He was crying. He was on the phone. They passed through a landscape of crumbled buildings, cars that were overturned, dead cows. And meanwhile, the radio was blasting tsunami alerts. So he was just out of his mind, and so was the guy with him. He finally got back to his house, which was half destroyed. Nobody was there, but the happy ending is that he was reunited with his wife and his baby that night. The point that I make about language tables at Oldenborg is that they helped me introduce myself to strangers. They helped me speak in different languages, get used to speaking and to hearing and understanding them, but also listening to their stories, which sparked an interest in me in wanting to tell stories and put faces onto the issues behind the headlines. When I was based in France, I was sent down to cover the civil war in Liberia. And to do that, we went to, I went to the Ivory Coast first because we had to go deep into the country to cross the border. So a photographer and I were driving around Abidjan, just getting supplies, when we heard just some big noises like bangs, which turned out to be like doors slamming, and people ran out into the streets. They looked panicked. They were going, just as if something terrible had just happened. We pulled over right away because we didn't know if there'd been assassination or something. And then I got out of the car and I asked one of the guys there. I said, "Mais qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Est-ce qu'il avait un coup d'état?" And he said, "Non, non. Le Cameroun vient de marquer un but contre l'Argentine dans la Coupe du Monde." Cameroon just scored a goal against Argentina in the World Cup. So it wasn't a violent change of government, which would have been a great story on its own. But it allowed me to really sort of touch the pulse, feel the pulse of something that was really important to local people. And it showed me also the camaraderie and the partnership that people in one African country felt for another African country, even though it wasn't their own. Cameroon was only the second sub-Saharan African country to take part in the World Cup finals at that time in 1990. And they scored a goal against the defending champion and actually beat Argentina in that game. Later got eliminated, but hey, that's life. Going back even further, in 1989, I was covering the protests at Tiananmen Square in Beijing. Hundreds of thousands of people converging on the square, students, citizens, journalists, Chinese journalists also greatly in favor of supporting the students. And protesters were driving up and down Chang'anjia, the big boulevard in Beijing, with big banners of denouncing the leadership, calling for liberalizations. And one night I was in a flatbed truck with about 20 other people, and they were chanting this slogan, and they all burst into laughter at the end. And I understood the first three lines, but I didn't understand the last line. And what they chanted, though, I still remember. They were making fun of Deng Xiaoping, the senior leader at the time, and the fact that he liked to play bridge. That was what he was famous for. And they were chanting, "Xiaoping, Xiaoping, 85高龄, 打牌还行, 脑袋不灵," which translates as, "Xiaoping, Xiaoping, you're 85, you're old. You're still okay at playing cards, but your mind has gone." You know. It's funnier in Chinese because it rhymes. You know. But all of these episodes are just reminders to me of how I got my start in getting to learn about foreign languages, to be more comfortable in speaking them, and again, to introduce myself to strangers and to ask them about themselves and to engage in the kind of dialogues that shaped and were all through my career, which has come all these 50 years. And I'm so happy to see former professors, another former student there, Julia, say, hey, returning here. And yes, go Borg 2.0. Thanks.
Thank you, Terrell, and everyone else. It's our midpoint, so that's why I'm up here again. And I want to invite all of you, when this is over around 11:30, to move straight to Oldenborg, where you can expect a crowd. And we're going to honor a variety of people, and I think it should be a good time. So 11:30 to 1:30, it's our very last lunch in that building. And don't speak English. I also get to tell my own story. I was born in a small town in Germany to American parents who had met on, or at least got to know one another and study abroad. They're actually in this room today. And when I was 3, we moved to small town Indiana. And when I was 8, I forgot to mention, but this is important for my story. My mom was a German teacher and my dad a pastor. And when I was 8, they escaped the Bible Belt and moved to Vienna, Austria, where I finished school at the Gymnasium, which is not a gymnasium. Vienna in the 1980s, to do sports was actually expensive. But the city's taxpayers, or the country's taxpayers, subsidized music lessons for everyone. So I wanted to become a pianist. My piano teacher, Alejandro Geberovich, was from Argentina, and I had a huge crush on his star student, a 20-something, Sergio Posada, from Colombia. And when he played Brahms's first piano concerto, I absolutely swooned. At this point, it was clear to me I would take a gap year in South America. One of the things about the Austrian education system is that it kind of locks you into a set curriculum. So in 5th grade, I started learning French. In 7th grade, we added Latin. In 9th grade, English for beginners, even though I spoke it at home. And then there was a huge countrywide curricular reform. We got to choose one elective for the last 3 years. What did I choose? Spanish, of course. Well, guess what? Spanish was canceled, because they also have good parental leave in Austria, and the teacher was on maternity leave. And so what language did they offer instead? If you look at my CV, Russian. And so my last 3 years of high school, I took Russian, taught by our English teacher, Herr Thomas Müller, who had learned Russian in U.S. Army intelligence. He was from Oklahoma, so I got a great accent right from the beginning. 25 years later, it's 2018. I've been a Russian, not Spanish, professor at Pomona for the last 10 years. And dear Rita Bashal, whom I see sitting over there, decides to move to Seattle. And so I leap at the opportunity to try something new. I am arrogant as all get out. I know I'm going to be the best, most perfect Oldenborg director that place has ever had. Wow, had I ever underestimated what it takes to supervise 13 employees, remain a faculty member at the same time, and just run a really complicated operation? The building wasn't really in great shape at that time either, so I was on speed dial with facilities. I told you plumbing would come up. Rob, the plumber, and I became real close. I learned more about toilet paper than any person should know. And I also learned from a whole new perspective, more than as a faculty member, how special and unique this place is, and how for the last 60 years, how much love and care and attention to detail and diplomatic finesse has gone into keeping it alive. So at that note, I'm going to draw on my American, not my Austrian heritage, and turn to the sound of music and some of my favorite things. Language tables, curating them. I really think of it as curation. Which tables go where? Square or rectangular? Where's the draft blowing by the windows? Let's make sure to make it fair. Rotate a little bit. United Nations level negotiations. I kid you not. About all sorts of things, from flags to maps to, I don't know, you name it, right? One of the things that I think is really important is that at Oldenborg, we try as hard as we can to make peace inside Oldenborg, in the campus, to keep that peace. And you know what? It does not always work. But I think it's always worth trying. And so for me, that's something really important about Oldenborg. And so, on a lighter note, other favorite things? Going to Spanish table. Remember, I never did take a Spanish class, and saying, me gusta escuchar. And Adan would talk at me and even get me to talk a little bit. Going to French table and learning the phrase, mon français est rouillé. There we go. Trying not to speak with the language residents in Japanese and Spanish, Chinese table, because even though I could say hello, they then felt obliged to speak to me, and then we would start speaking English, and you can't do that. Stuff like that, learning how to say hello in almost every language that's spoken at the tables. These are the things that are important to me. And the people. The language residents especially. Hugo from Chile. I heard, Maggie from China. My quote-unquote Russian language residents, Mikita from Kiev. and Masha from Novosibirsk and St. Petersburg, and now lovely Rahila from Dushanbe via Bishkek. These are all wonderful people. And all of you in this room too, and all of the people who have worked at Oldenborg. And I saw a different Adan Gallardo here, who's like our steady force and like anchor in all of this. So I'm gonna come back to my childhood real quick. I mentioned German teacher and pastor. It was very clear to me from a very early age that I was A, not gonna be a teacher. You can see where that turned out. B, that I probably wouldn't be going to church every Sunday when I was grown up. Judgment's still out on that one. But I do want to remember one church memory, which is the annual Harvest Festival at an international congregation in Vienna, where there was a big potluck, and people from Ghana and Singapore and Senegal and what was then Zaire, Le Monde Francophone, and Austria and Germany and the US and the UK all brought homemade dishes. I also learned to eat Korean spicy, which was not numb, but spicy. And it completely shaped who I am today. And so this brings me right back to Oldenborg, right? I'm not a person who identifies with a particular place particularly strongly. I don't feel like I belong to a single nation or state. In fact, I have real trouble with a lot of them. And I do find my people and my home breaking bread. It can be na kuchnia with my Russian friends, or at my neighbor's house in Claremont who makes fantastic homemade enchiladas. Or it can be at the table in Oldenborg, where we have staff and faculty and students and guests, retired people, working people, studying people. We get to take turns being beginners, novices, and experts, and it's not always the professors who are the experts. And to me, this is what Oldenborg is about. So, goodbye, Oldenborg. Long live Oldenborg. And let's keep all the special stuff going in the 2 years when the building's gone and bring it back without plumbing problems in the new one. Thank you. Now on to a language resident, one of my favorite groups of people, Blanca.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making it today here. My name is Blanca Lopez Zagarra. That gives away. So this is 2023. I'm a last year student at University of Granada, Spain. All I know is that I want to go abroad so bad after 4 years studying and start a new experience. I love Spanish, and I realized studying other languages that my own language would make it so interesting to share it with other people. So I looked into different Spanish teaching assistantships in the US, and here I am. 1 year later, I opened the door of my room in front of the Spanish Lounge East. I walk all the way to the dining hall. This is my very first day at language tables. So as the new Spanish language resident, I know that part of my job is getting to talk to people and having lunch. Sounds easy, right? Well, I bet that anybody that has been here for the first time at language tables can relate that they might be a little bit intimidating, right? So I'm standing in front of these iconic orange doors, and I was so nervous, but at the same time, so excited. Everybody here knows language tables. Everybody talks about them, and I want to get to know them. What kind of people am I going to find here? I was so curious. Will they like me? Are they going to be fun? Boring? I'm so curious. So I'm standing in front of the dining hall. All I know is that I need to grab my food, sit at my table, and talk with people. I look around and I just see all these round tables, rectangular ones too, with all these many labels, with so many languages. And I need to find the Spanish one because every day they rotate. So it's always an adventure. So I go there. Oh, I see the Spanish table. I go, I sit. I choose one of those round ones close to the main entrance. And I have a great view of the outside. Its weather is great, probably too hot because it's Claremont in August. And I was so happy we had AC inside. I look around and there's no people yet. And I just get more and more nervous. And at the same time, I wonder why there's a carpet in a dining hall. So weird. But suddenly, a woman with a huge smile approaches me. And she gently asked me, "Can I sit with you?" Her name is Juanita, and she works for the admissions office. She's there. Thank you, Juanita. She approached me with her hair on a ponytail, beautiful silk scarf, and red lipstick. I will never forget. She makes it so easy for me for the first time. And as we start talking, more and more people come. This year, I'm the only new language resident. The other 6 are returning. So everybody wants to get to know me. Everybody sits at my table, sat next to me, and it just feels so good. In a matter of seconds, I feel welcome. Question here, question there. Everybody wants to know who I am and where I come from. Every day at 12 o'clock, there is a huge line of people outside waiting to get inside of Oldenborg. Every day I have to be here from Monday through Friday and have lunch with people while talking to them. Every day it makes it a great experience. I meet so many people. Every day there is a new face that I meet. And not only students, but faculty members, community members, staff that all have the same goal in common, sharing their journey through the Spanish language. And I'm so honored to be part of that journey with them. And I can assure you that language tables are my favorite part of the day. People think that it's just, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? Bien, ¿y tú? But for me, it just goes beyond. Even those days when I'm not feeling that enthusiastic, change after a meal in Oldenborg. And who would even tell me that I would learn so much about my own language? Because here I've met people from every single Spanish-speaking country in the world. Adam from El Salvador, Eduardo from Mexico, Tommy and Ulises from Argentina, David from Nicaragua, Yaelin from Guatemala, just to name a few. I've learned so much from them, learning from the civil war in El Salvador to hearing creative insults that the students have learned in their time abroad. And we would always have these conversations on how to say this or that in Spanish. You know how many words do we have for the word straw? I'll tell you, we have 10 words. That's crazy. And for me, those discussions would make my day. All the lessons, laughter, experiences, warmth, hugs. Every time I go to the dining hall, I get hugs from Diamante, from Esmeralda, even for those students that maybe I haven't seen for a week. All this is what makes Oldenborg feel so special and a home for so many of us. And everything that I learned here, I shared with my family back in Spain. Hopefully they're watching me. With my friends, and even with the students here. There's so much to share and memories to keep alive. The Blanca that is standing before you is totally different from the Blanca before Oldenborg. She's being transformed and she feels more connected than ever. Being part of Oldenborg makes you be part of the world. And for me, that's the best gift that Oldenborg could have given to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bernard Chan. Can you actually see me? Well, step back a little bit. Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Bernard Chan. My friends call me Bernie. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, and I came to Pomona. I think I have to set aside here. I came to Pomona in 1983, and my first dorm is Oldenborg. 3 weeks into my freshman year, I got sick. And then 2 months later, I was, well, this is too quick, but anyway. It came too quick. Anyway, yes, please. You got to hold that up. I was diagnosed with a rare disease, a disease that basically inflamed my arteries. And so the artery to my brain and 2 arteries to both my kidneys was narrow, and in fact, both functions of my kidney were down to only 50%. So I end up spending every other semester away from campus at the hospital, having my bypass surgeries for 3 consecutive years. So each time when I left campus, I wasn't sure I would make it back to the next semester. And you can only imagine I was very scared at the time and confused and lost because it's an unknown rare disease, so I'm not quite sure exactly what would happen to me. But it was my friends that I met at Oldenborg that kept me going and helped me through those very troubling times. Now, Oldenborg was a place that I can always find my spiritual support. Here we go. Now you can put this up. So each time when I'm about to send off for my surgeries, my friends at Oldenborg would do something crazy like this for me. And this was 1986, exactly 40 years ago. This is I get one of those send-off party. 4 of you are here today. At least I spotted 4 of you. Suzanne, I was here. Ed, Lonnie, Maji, you guys are all here. This is at the Oldenborg this is the common area at Oldenborg. And in case you wonder who I was right here. I'm there. And I was a lot heavier then, 50 pounds heavier. And they're all there to root for me. Now, by the way, I also designed T-shirts. So these are the T-shirts, the yellow one and the white one. They wore these T-shirts. You can't see it from far. It said UBBC, Uncle Bernie Buff Center. Don't ask why. Those people, the 4 of you here know the reason. The next one, please. And of course, they sent me all these cards. Manny, you can remember those cards? I kept them all. By the way, I had the original, but I didn't want to bring that here. I have it make this. I got many more of these back at my home. It meant so much to me during that time. And by the way, it's not just for that time. Even today, every now and then, when I'm very down, when I lost again, they're in my file. So I open up the file and look at these messages sent by my dear friends. And so just to give you an idea how important Oldenborg and those friends I made during those many years have meant to me. Friendship is not the only thing at Oldenborg that meant so much to me. Oldenborg, so happened, is also a place where I felt being accepted. I was a foreign student. I came here and I chose Oldenborg. By the way, this you can also imagine that every time when I returned from my surgery, I chose Oldenborg again. So I actually never left. And I ended up spending 5 years at Pomona because I didn't graduate with my class. I was supposed to be 87, but of course, because of all the time I spent off campus in my surgery, so I ended up graduating a year after. So, but all 5 years, each time I came back to Oldenborg because Oldenborg was my sanctuary. It's a place I can feel I've been protected. And you can tell the reason. But besides the friendships I make at Oldenborg, again, as I said, maybe perhaps those of you, every one of you here who chose to come to Oldenborg because you want to learn a language, right? Or you want to learn a culture different from yours. So I suppose for that reason, I felt I'm being accepted. People don't treat you different, right? I'm a foreign student, but so what? Everyone is, prepared to learn something new. So it's a place where I think we can all agree that we learn to look at different things, have a different perspective on the same issues. Now, maybe perhaps that was the reason, I don't know. I ended up 10 years after I graduated from Pomona, I got myself involved in politics. I was, in 1998, I was elected to the first batch of legislators in the Parliament of Hong Kong after the return of Hong Kong to China. And I've served 10 years in the legislature and then 14 and a half years in the cabinet of Hong Kong, plus 15 years in the National People Congress of China. It's an amazing journey. I came to Pomona to study economics. I ended with a studio art degree. That's another story. They only give me 8 minutes. You come back next time. And I was studio art, but today, guess what? I'm front and center dealing with issues that dividing us. Right? When I say dividing us, China-US rivalry and many other topics. I'm front and center dealing with all those issues. And I suppose it was the exposure that Oldenborg allows me to appreciate the different perspective that each of you brings to the table. Allow me to understand that we are different, but we can always agree to disagree. So it is actually more than ever important today to have a place like Oldenborg or the future Center for Global Engagement. We need a place that allows us to agree, to disagree, and to learn from each other. So I am forever grateful to Pomona, but more importantly to Oldenborg, to the friendships I make here, and many of them still remain my friends. And I remember my sponsors, Lani, taught me something here. It says here, friends are friends forever. So thank you to Oldenborg to allow me this chance, and thank you for bringing me back. I flew in yesterday. I'm flying back out tonight, back to Hong Kong. So thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Oh, amazing story from Bernie. Oh my goodness. Good morning. I'm Karin Zogblack, class of 93 and resident of the Japanese, German, and Russian sections during my years, 2-year Borgie. I'm really thrilled to be here with you all today. I convinced my Frosh roommate, my sponsor, and my daughter. So you guys I've got my cheer section there in the house. And a bunch of my senseis are here too. So I want to give a shout out to my senseis in the room. Thank you so much. Resistance is futile. You will become one with the Borg. I can still remember walking into that drab, gray, concrete bunker of a building, Oldenborg dorm, and going in, and there's all that neutral colored walls and drab plain carpet, and taking a left and going down the first side hallway, thinking, okay, I think my room is down here. And then coming upon that first split level staircase and thinking, uh-oh, it's going to be easy to get lost in here. Bumbling around, looking for my room, stumbling across and finding different language lounges. Like, I thought the Spanish one was here, but maybe the German was supposed to be here. Eventually, I learned how to retrace my steps, sometimes just going for an exit door, get back outside, reorient a little bit, and eventually learned how to navigate all those maze side hallways of Oldenborg. And so many memories, learning Herbert Grönemeyer songs from the Austrian resident Maria, being the Kiji bird in the Momotaro play for the Japanese night, and I've got pictures here to prove it. And just amazing times, but I still always remember that first day and being a little lost. And certainly there were other days when I was lost there too. That reminds me of my favorite Borg story, which is using that mystique and that reputation of being lost. So my sophomore year, I was a sponsor in the Borg, and we decided to throw a 5-college Halloween party to sort of maximize that mystique. And October 27th, 1990, our theme, Club Dead, Party at the Morgue. And we utilized all the spaces. So the south courtyard, we had a big screen and a projector, and we were showing scary movies like Hitchcock's Psycho and The Birds. And then the south courtyard, we had a DJ playing Monster Mash and Michael Jackson's Thriller and lots of music with just echoing off all of the outside dorm walls. And then we would lead people down into the basement. And all my sponsees were dressed up in white t-shirts with lots of blood and gore. And Gus was hanging from the pipes in the ceiling and sticking his hands down and tickling people's hair. We had Maria with a big knife pretending to cut Peter, who was laid out on a morgue table. And we had a section with a table where you could dip your hands in and feel the eyeballs, peeled grapes, or the brains, spaghetti. And we had a line out the door to get into this party. And the music and the movies and everything continued way deep into the night. Campus security may or may not have been called to shut us down. And we were so thrilled because here the self-declared language nerds were able to throw a really rager of a party that not only made money for the dorm, but also people were talking about for weeks afterwards. So while that's my favorite Borg memory, certainly the realization and understanding about the impact of what I learned while at Oldenborg came a few years later. I was working in Kobe, Japan, January 17th, 1995. I'm 24 years old, and Kobe was struck with a 7.2 earthquake. On day 3, I found myself deployed down into Kobe City, downtown area. Destruction everywhere. Toppled buildings, some that were leaning across streets, others that were completely collapsed and blocking roadways, collapsed highways and train systems, broken pipes and dripping water, concrete dust, and the sound of sirens just constantly 24/7, and people yelling and calling out to each other. I was deployed to meet the Swiss rescue team with their rubble sniffing dogs and to serve as an interpreter between the Swiss and the Japanese fire department and self-defense forces. And our job was to find people buried in the rubble. My job, we would get to a new site, and I had to interpret Japanese to German and back again and find out about what was going on at the situation. So, who are we looking for? Where was their bedroom? How did the building fall? And I had a little 3-ring notebook, and I would draw a diagram of the house and where the bedroom was, and then we would be trying to find the person. The dogs work in teams, and so you would send in each dog, and they would bark, And by the time the third dog had barked, you would know right where the person is. And the elation when we pulled a child out of a collapsed building alive. And more, we kept finding many people, and unfortunately, many of them had already passed away. Patrizia, the Swiss German handler that I was working with, and her German Shepherd dog were just really sad and disheartened that we weren't able to be finding more people alive. And that flashed me back to my Japanese host family in high school in my little village in Hiroshima when Grandma Shigeko died. And I was able to take part in the 3-day Buddhist burial rituals with my family and with Grandma Shigeko. So washing and preparing her body, laying her out on a sleeping futon, putting flowers and Japanese mikan oranges at the Buddhist altar, laying all our futon around Grandma for a last slumber party, a last meal together, and the time to reflect and celebrate and say goodbye. So I explained to Patrizia, it is really a gift that we are giving these families to be able to get that body and let them say goodbye to their loved one. So it really is important. And I pointed and I said, there you can see a father and their children that are laying out their mother and their wife on a futon in the middle of the street amidst all of the chaos and the sirens, and they have a single mikan, and they are saying goodbye to her, and that is important, and it's important, and was able to explain that to Patrizia. I value so much the education that I received at Oldenborg and Pomona. The language skills for sure, which I've utilized so much in my whole career in my life, but not just the language skills, the cultural skills, those cross-cultural skills. That's what you learn when you're living with native language speakers and you're doing plays and you're learning songs and you're debating nuance of phrases for hours deep into the night. Gemütlich, otsukare-sama deshita, right? Dissecting those languages, dissecting those words, and you get to interpret and learn about those different cultures. And that really allows you to be a connector and a bridge to people. And that's the power of Oldenborg. And I use that every day in my job. I'm manager of international relations and protocol for the Port of Seattle. And I get to learn on a daily basis as I help welcome the world to our region. And I, in this time, in this current climate, educating global citizens is such critical work. We need more bilingual and trilingual Americans. So let's keep that work going. And I can't wait to see what the new International Center brings to campus. And it has been such an honor to be here with all of our storytellers today and celebrate Oldenborg and what Oldenborg has brought to the world and to me. So thank you all so much.
Good morning. Wow, such a long history with Oldenborg. I have a very short one. Seriously. My name is Nimal Pereira. I live in Rancho Cucamonga, which is 8-10 miles from here. I've been living there for over 30 years. The year was 2019. We are visiting Italy for the third time with my wife Jasmine in Sicily. And we are enjoying the beautiful sceneries, breathtaking views, more than anything, the food. Amazing. We love Italian food. So we are in Catania, and we go to after visiting all the other locations, we go to this tiny cafe to eat dinner sometimes. And that day, we ordered a famous Sicilian and Catanian dish, pasta alla norma. And the server brings us this dish which had beautiful aroma. And I wanted to tell her how much we appreciate the country, the service, and the people. I can't. Don't speak a word of Italian. And in Sicily, not everybody converse with you in English. So I make a decision. I'm going to learn the language. Come back home, and I write to all the institutions around here saying that I want to learn Italian. And I started learning. Then I hear from one of my friends who happened to be a professor at Harvey Mudd, now I'm learning the language, but I need to practice. He says, go to Oldenborg. What? I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, go to Oldenborg. You can sit and practice your language, Italian. So I don't know how to get there or anything. So I look up, write to Oldenborg. I get a reply back from one of the Oldenborg members saying, you're welcome. And as soon as we open up after the pandemic, you're welcome to come and sit on the tables. So I go to Oldenborg, look for Italian, sit on the table, serve myself. I don't know anybody. I'm so nervous. And here, all these students walking in, cheering at each other, saying hi to their colleagues and teachers and professors. I'm sitting there like not knowing anybody. So nervous. And my language skills were not at the best at the time. And I started introducing myself. I said to the person next to me, my name is Nimal. Suddenly somebody turns around and say, Ciao Nimal. I said, who's this? It so happened he's one of the professors that I wrote to wanting to learn Italian. And he knew my name through the communications we had with him. So now I'm feeling a little bit better. So I continued to come to the language tables, and I go home and tell my wife, Jasmine, hey, this is a great place. Oldenborg language tables, they have over 20 languages that students come and practice. She says, can I go? I said, I'll check for you, because we moved here from Montreal, and she grew up in Montreal. She studied in English and in French. She was losing her French. She goes, I want to go and sit on the French table. I said, sure, I'll check with them. They said, sure, she can come. So we go, and I go to the Italian table, and she comes to the French table, and she made a lot of friends on the French table also. And so we're having fun. So it's very short. This is in 2022, 2023. It's 2024. We are back in Italy, this time in Puglia. I guess you know where Puglia is, where you have these beautiful conical homes built with stones called trullis in Alberobello. So at the end of the trip, I walk into a bookshop, and to the counter person I say, buongiorno. she goes, buongiorno. After she greeted me, I tell her, sono uno studente italiano. Può aiutarmi a trovare qualche libro per imparare italiano? Which means, can you help me find some books to learn? Oh my God, their eyes light up. Everybody is running around this little bookshop looking for books to help me. And it was amazing being able to learn the language in such a short time. Thanks to Oldenborg for helping me to practice it with everybody and wonderful students. I can tell you, the students at Pomona and all the Claremont colleges are the best I've ever seen. Really, really helpful, supportive, and a pleasure to be around and with. So that's my story about Oldenborg not being a member of your community, which goes back to 50, 60 years, and all the long stories I heard of your experience, I can share and be thankful to Oldenborg for giving me this opportunity to myself and my wife to practice our languages and be able to be here to present my little story to you, which is a very short history. And, I was born and grew up in Sri Lanka. And with all that, adding another language expands your horizon a lot. Thank you very much, Oldenborg.
That's pretty much all, folks. But I want to thank all of our participants and Crystal and Nan. And I want everyone just to reflect for a moment what little phrase, what image is going to go home with them today. For me, I loved no, it's not a coup d'etat, it's the World Cup. And then there are those moments of, numb sauce. When I heard Adan practice his story last night, I almost started crying because I didn't know he was retiring. So what's your moment? Think about it. Go.
Can I share my moment?
Sure.
Quickly. You have 2 minutes. My name is Mary Louise Baez, class of 1986. Oldenborg was my first dorm. I dreamed of coming to Southern California, first generation student that I didn't even know that was a thing. And my parents allowed me to come here, live in this dorm, away from home, and I met my best friend as my freshman roommate. I came because I wanted to be a diplomat. A long path with international relations as my major, living in the Spanish section. I can today say, Marhaban, Ismi Mari, Ana, Il Safarat, Amerikia. That is where I am based as an American diplomat today. I am here only because of a current situation in the world that brought me back here. But Oldenborg changed my life. As Bernie said, it was always home. I lived there for 3 semesters. After my first semester, my sister died. It was devastating. I didn't know you could take a break, and I didn't. I came back. My grades were bad, but I still kept my Cal grant, and I got to study. 3 semesters it took to be able to go to study abroad because of those grades, even though all of my Spanish grades were very high. Professor Richard Harrison said, Mary Louise, you are persistent. If you can't go for first semester senior year, the faculty has decided you can still graduate with your international relations degree, even though study abroad is required. I got to go first semester senior year because of a program through Oldenborg that was called It was a sister program with the Associated Colleges of the Midwest. I went to Costa Rica, was placed with the host family, 40 years. Last fall, I got to celebrate with them. I've known them. I got to be at my host mother's bedside when she passed away. That changed my life. I lost my only sister in 1983, but because of my persistence, Professor Harrison's support, and the director of Oldenborg, who allowed me to study abroad. At that time, I was studying abroad in one of the closest cities to Pomona, and she told me it was the most expensive because it was through Associated Colleges of the Midwest. Thank you.
Okay, one more word, Nimal. One word.
Okay, I have to say this. I shortened it up because I was watching the clock. But one last thing I wanted to say. When I wanted to learn Italian, a lot of people told me, "You want to learn a new language now?" I'm going to be 77 this year. So I said, yes, you never stop learning. In the process, I also learned an Italian term for that. Non mollare mai. Never give up. Keep on learning. Non mollare mai.
Class is dismissed. Please continue these rich conversations over lunch. And I also want to thank all the Oldenborg directors in the room because I see at least 3 and there might be more. Keep on talking. Bow. There was a slightly unplanned event and I got totally distracted, but we have to honor all our speakers. Give them a round of applause.